Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Theresa May's been Prime Minister for over a month now, but it still doesn't feel like we really know what to expect from her early days. But maybe we have a clue as to her thinking in the fact that on the steps of Downing Street, she name-checked Joseph Chamberlain, a politician who helped define modern conservatism. He wasn't really a conservative at all. He was a radical and a liberal who built his career by building a Midlands powerhouse. Lewis Goodall reports on Joseph Chamberlain and his relevance to us.
In 30 years, Birmingham grew into a dirty, overcrowded industrial giant. The transformation that was to come was more astonishing. Elegant thoroughfares, sewers, clean water, beautiful civic buildings like the law courts where slums once stood. One man is responsible for this: Theresa May's new lodestar. You could say that Joseph Chamberlain was Britain's first truly modern political figure, a reformer, a political organiser, someone who was truly transformative. He turned Birmingham from being just a quiet provincial backwater into one of the most advanced and progressive cities anywhere in the world. Joseph Chamberlain became mayor of the city in 1873. This Victorian chameleon was a radical liberal, a guardian of the working class, and a godfather of municipal conservatism. And he's back in vogue. The political hero of one Nick Timothy, Theresa May's chief of staff and most trusted advisor, is none other than Chamberlain. And who should be mentioned in her first policy speech in Birmingham but Radical Joe?
From Robert Peel to Lady Thatcher, from Joseph Chamberlain to Winston Churchill, throughout history, it has been the Conservative Party's role to rise to the occasion and to take on the vested interests before us.
Listen to the kind of language she uses. Pure Chamberlainomics.
We don't just believe in individualism, but in society. We don't hate the state. We value the role that only the state can play.
Chamberlain took the waterworks and gas supply into city ownership, and disease fell. This was local nationalisation, and the profits were used for the betterment of the city. This was the civic gospel, that famous Victorian morality.
The civic gospel was kind of born of a religious idea. Chamberlain was a Unitarian and a nonconformist.
His approach terrified the middle classes of the day, who saw him as a gas and water socialist. "We have not the slightest intention of making profit," he said. "We shall get our profit in the comfort and health of our inhabitants."
I think it was Chamberlain's business sense to take that risk, to see that there was potential that they could gain profit, and that profit could fund other ventures such as the building of the museum and art gallery which we're standing in today.
The university is one of Chamberlain's most abiding legacies. It represents the power of civic pride that made Birmingham the first of the great Victorian city-states. In the shadow of the Old Joe clock tower, Malcolm Dick explains Chamberlain's primary contribution to Conservative history, the appeal to the working class vote.
We can see him emphasising a social reform strand, at least insofar as linking working class aspirations, social and economic aspirations, with the state, and a tradition of strong local authorities versus a strong central government.
Chamberlain began life as a liberal but split over Home Rule, founding the Liberal Unionists. Then he took them into the Conservative Party. He believed in the Union and in policies that appealed to the working class. May believes in both. But Chamberlain was also an avowed imperialist. He was colonial secretary and progenitor of the Boer War. He wanted the empire to be a single trade bloc. He designed Corporation Street, a Parisian-style boulevard running through Birmingham to sell its wares, and the taxes on those goods would be used for pension and housing.
Imperialism was probably his fatal mistake, but a politically understandable one. But he was always a liberal. He promised better housing, he promised old age pensions, he promised a minimum wage, he promised a crackdown on immigration, he promised many of the things that Theresa May promised the other day.
Birmingham is unusual. It's the only industrial city where the Conservative Party has survived in significant numbers. A strong presence in the council chamber today is part of his legacy. Their local leader relishes a Tory shift to Chamberlainism.
I think we'll see a focus on having an industrial strategy for the country. Theresa May talked about the importance of making sure that key industries aren't taken out of the country. And then I think the other area we'll see some big changes on devolution, where I think we'll see a real speeding up of the devolving of powers and really cutting the strings to allow cities to really make the best deal they can.
Theresa May has been in politics for 30 years and Home Secretary for the last 6. Yet we know surprisingly little about her political beliefs. Chamberlain may well be her lodestar, and if he is, then Conservatives are in for a bit of a shock, because he represents a strand of conservatism and conservative thought that would mark the biggest departure for the party since 1979. Churchill said of Chamberlain that he was a politician who made the weather. If Theresa May is serious in reawakening this strand of thinking, she may well yet manage the same.
Lewis Goodall there.
I've been getting away with it